ओके, चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं। सो हमारा आज का जो टर्म है वो स्टार्ट होता है बैलेट से। 17 टर्म्स हम इससे पहले कर चुके हैं। ये हमारा 18 टर्म है बैलेट। क्या होता है बैलेट? अ शॉर्ट डेफिनेशन ऑफ द पॉपुलर बैलेड, ऑल्सो नोन एज फोक बैलेड, या इसको आपको ध्यान में रखना है। फोक बैलेड और ट्रेडिशनल बैलेड, ठीक है ना? इज दैट इट इज अ सॉन्ग transmitted orally. This is very important. A ballad is a song that is transmitted orally, which tells a story. ठीक है? Ballads are thus the narrative species of folk songs, which originate and are communicated orally among illiterate or only partly literate people. In all probability, the initial version of a ballad was composed by a single author, but he or she is unknown, क्योंकि orally passed down हुआ है. And since each singer who learns and repeats an oral ballad is apt to introduce changes in both the text and the tune, it exists in many variant forms. Typically, the most popular ballad is dramatic, condensed, and impersonal. Narrator begins with a climatic episode, tells the story tersely in action and dialogue, sometimes by means of dialogue alone, and tells it without self-reference or the expression of personal attitudes or feelings. अगर मैं इसका डेफिनेशन आपको दूं तो वेट। चलिए इतना बहुत है, आगे बढ़ते हैं। The most common stanza form, also called ballad stanza, is a quatrain in alternate 4 and 3 stress lines. Usually, only the second and fourth lines rhyme. This is the form of Sir Patrick Spence. The first stanza also exemplifies the abrupt opening of the typical ballad and a manner in proceeding by third person narration, curtly sketched, setting and action, sharp translation and separate dialogue. Example दे रखा है, the king sits in Dumferling town, drinking the blood red wine. Oh, what will I get? Where will we? Where sorry? Where will I get a good sailor to sail this ship of mine? Many ballads employ set formulas which help the singer remember the course of the song. क्या क्या होता है ये? Stock descriptive phrases like blood red wine and milk white steed. Second है a refrain in each stanza. Edward, Lord Randall, etc. Incremental repetition in which a line or stanza is repeated but with an addition that advances the story. Lord Randall, Child Waters. पूरा पोएट्री हम बाद में कर देंगे, डोंट वरी। एक सेकंड रखिए। Give me a moment. ओके, चलिए आगे चलते हैं। सो ये हो चुका हमारा। ऑल्दो many traditional ballads probably originated in the middle ages, later middle ages. Wait a minute. हाँ. Although many traditional ballads probably originated in the later Middle Ages, they were not collected and printed until the 18th century, है ना? Because orally जो है transmit होते थे, first in England and then in Germany. In 1765, Thomas Percy published his Relics of Ancient English Poetry, which most of the most of the contents had been revised in the style of Percy's era did much to inaugurate widespread interest in folk literature. The basic modern collection is Francis J. Child's English and Scottish popular ballads. वेट कीजिए, ये ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, नीचे है इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट। यहाँ से रुकिए सेकंड। हाँ, यहाँ से। सो अ ब्रॉडसाइड बैलेट ये क्या होता है? अ ब्रॉडसाइड बैलेट इज अ बैलेट that was printed on one side of a single sheet, है ना, called broadside, dealt with a current dealt with a current event or person or issue and was sung to a well known tune। तो ये रहा आपका broadside ballad। डेफिनेशन आपका इतना ही है। Beginning with the 16th century, these broadsides were hogged in the streets or at country fairs in Great Britain। नेक्स्ट आने वाला है आपका लिटरेरी बैलेड। The traditional ballad has greatly influenced the form and style of lyric poetry in general. It has also engendered the literary ballad, which is a narrative poem written in deliberate imitation of the form। आई डोंट थिंक इसमें कुछ और इम्पोर्टेंट है। चलिए नेक्स्ट चीज पे चलते हैं हम लोग। लेट मी नंबर दिस। तो ये 18 था। ओके, बार्ड। The term of Gaelic provenance appearing in English in the mid 15th century as a name for the professional poets who operated in the Celtic societies of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, often in the employ of the noble patron, for whose achievements they provided poetic commemoration. In Ireland, bards constituted a learned, professional, and hereditary class charged with maintaining the oral history from generation to generation। तो देखिए बार्ड का यूजुअली मीनिंग तो पोएट ही होता है, इसको लेके आपको और आगे जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। लेट्स मूव टू द नेक्स्ट वन। बारोक्यू। The term applied by art historians at first derogatorily, but now merely descriptively, to a style of architecture, sculpture, and painting that emerged in Italy in the beginning of the 17th century and then spread to Germany and other countries in Europe. The style employs the classical forms of the Renaissance but breaks them up and intermingles with them to achieve elaborate, grandiose, energetic, and highly dramatic effects. Major examples of Baroque art are the sculptures of Bernini and the architecture of Saint Peter Cathedral in Rome। अगर हम term की बात करें तो the term has been adopted with reference to literature with a variety of applications। It may signify any, any elaboratedly former and sorry, magniloquent style in verse and or prose। वेट कीजिए। Okay, let's move forward. Next है हमारा bathos and anticlimax. Bathos is a Greek for depth, and it has been an indispensable term to critique since Alexander Pope, parodying the Greek Longinus's famous essay on the sublime, that is, loftiness, wrote in 1727 an essay on bathos of the art of sinking in poetry. With mock solemnity, Pope assures his readers that he undertakes to lead them as it were by the hand. The gentle downhill way to Bathos, the bottom, the end, the central point, the non plus ultra of true modern poesy. The word, ever since, has been used for an unintentional descent in literature. When straining to be pathetic or passionate or elevated, the writer overshoots the mark and drops into the trivial or the ridiculous. दोबारा इसको अगर हम कंप्लीट करें तो is the it has been okay. Wait a minute. Okay, let's move on. So, Bathos and anticlimax. So, bathos को हम कहते हैं ग्रीक में depth, and it has been an indispensable term to critique since Alexander Pope, parodying the Greek Longinus' famous essay on the sublime, that is loftiness, wrote in 1727 an essay on bathos of the art of thinking in poetry. With mock solemnity, Pope assures his readers that he undertakes to lead them as it were by the hand, the gentle readers that he undertakes to lead them, sorry, downhill way to bathos, the bottom, the end, the central point, the non plus ultra of true modern poesy. Okay, so moving on. Uh, The slogan for God, for country, and for Yale is apathetic because it moves to intended climax, that is the ascending sequence of importance in its rhetoric order, but to unintended descent in its reference, at least for someone who is not a Yale graduate. Even major poets sometimes fall unwittingly into the same rhetorical figure. The early versions of the prelude, tingly. Okay, ये दे रखा है. Okay, let's take it for depth, है ना? Let's move on to the next one. Next है हमारा anticlimax. Anticlimax is something employed as an equivalent of pathos, ठीक है? Uh, but in a more useful application, anticlimax is non-derogatory and denotes a writer's deliberate drop from the serious and elevated to the trivial and lowly in order to achieve a comic or satiric effect. ठीक है ना? Perfect quiz में दे रखा है. इसको हम लोग अंडरलाइन भी कर लेते हैं. हाँ, तो चलिए कुछ एग्जांपल देखते हैं. Or on the death of favorite, thus Thomas Gray in his mock heroic or ode to the death of a favorite cat, 1748. The cat had drowned when she tried to catch a goldfish. Gravely inserts this moral observation. क्या? Anticlimax. What female heart can gold despise? What cats averse to fish? And in Don Juan, Biden uses anticlimax to deflate the would-be gallantry of Juan's father. A better cavalier never mounted horse or being mounted ever got down again. ये हमारा 21st है. ये वाला टॉपिक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, बीट राइटर सबका. अगेन इसके ऊपर पे बीट जनरेशन के ऊपर पे हम लोगों ने पूरा एक पीडीएफ कंप्लीट कर रखा है. लेट्स स्टार्ट. Beat writers identifies a loose-knit group of poets and novelists in the second half of the 1950s and early 1960s who shared a set of social attitudes: anti-establishment, anti-political, anti-intellectual, opposed to the prevailing cultural, literary, and moral values, and in favor of unfettered self-realization and self-expression. तो बहुत इसमें यही है डेफिनेशन बीट राइटर्स का, बीट जनरेशन के राइटर्स का. The beat writers often performed in coffee houses and other public places to the accompaniment of drums and jazz music. Beat was used to signify both. तो ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है कि बीट that is the oppressive culture of the time and beauty of it. Many of the beat writers cultivated aesthetic states by way of Buddhism, Jewish, and Christian mysticism, and or drugs that induced visionary experiences. The group included the diverse figures of poets like Ginsberg, Gregory Corso, Lawrence Ferlin-Hetty, and novelists William Burroughs and Jack Kerouac. Ginsberg's Howl is a central beat achievement in its breathless chanted celebration of the down and out and the subculture of drug users, social misfits and compulsory wanderers, as well as representing the derangement of the intellect in the senses affected by sexual abandon. ये भी important है, sexual abandon, drug hallucinations, religious ecstasies. यहाँ पे social misfits ये इसमें drug users भी थे and compulsive wanderers भी थे. ठीक है, कुछ अगर इसके मॉक्स की बात करें तो वी हैव जैक करुआ का ऑन द रोड. While the beat movement was short-lived, it left an imprint on the subject in the form of many writers of 1960s and 70s. Okay, that's it. 23, biography, very easy. Okay, start करते हैं. Late in the 17th century, John Dryden defined biography neatly as the history of a particular man's life. तो perfectly दे रखा है. The name now connects a relatively full account of a particular person, a person's life, involving the attempt to set forth character, temperament, and milieu, as well as the subject's activities and experiences. Both the ancient Greeks and Romans produced short. ओके, यहाँ पे एक और टर्म है जो आपको समझ में आना चाहिए. Medieval authors wrote generalized chronicles of the deeds of king as well as hagiographies. क्या होता है ये? The styled lives of Christian saints often based more on the pious legends than on fact. ठीक है, चलिए नेक्स्ट पे आते हैं. सो बायोग्राफी से नेक्स्ट हमारे पास होता है ऑटोबायोग्राफी. क्या है ये? द बायोग्राफी रिटन बाय द सब्जेक्ट अबाउट हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ. इफ वेट. सो लेट्स मूव ऑन. ऑटोबायोग्राफी क्या है? जब एक पर्सन अपने बारे में खुद लिखे. द बायोग्राफी रिटन बाय द सब्जेक्ट अबाउट हिमसेल्फ और हरसेल्फ. It is to be distinguished from the memoir, in which the emphasis is not on the author's developing self, but on the people, that events that the author has known or witnessed, and also from the private diary or journal. तो एक तो होगा memoir, ठीक है. और दूसरा है डायरी और जर्नल. ठीक है, तो एक तो यहाँ पे हो गया हैशटैग, दूसरा मेमोर हो गया, और तीसरा ऑटोबायोग्राफी हो गया. चलिए आगे चलते हैं. एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ द लेटर टाइप और 17th century diaries of Samuel Pepys and John Evelyn, the 18th century journals of James Boswell and Fanny Burney, and Dorothy Wordsworth. Wordsworth's remarkable journal, written 1798, 1828, but not published until long after her death. The first fully developed autobiography is also the most influential, The Confessions of Saint Augustine, written in the 4th century. The design of this profound and subtle spiritual autobiography centers on what became the crucial experience in Christian autobiography: the author's anguished mental crisis and recovery and conversion in which he discovers his Christian identity and recovery and conversion in which he discovers his Christian identity and religious vocation. Okay, next is 24. चलिए नेक्स्ट चलते हैं। नेक्स्ट है हमारे पास ब्लैक आर्ट्स मूवमेंट। क्या होता है? So the Black Arts movement designates a number of African American writers whose work was shaped by the social and political turbulence of the 1960s, the massive protests, the decade of massive protests against the Vietnam War, demands for the rights of African American that led to represent. Okay, again, the Black Arts movement designates a number of African American writers whose work was shaped by the social and political turbulence of the 1960s. The decade of massive protests against the Vietnam War demands to the rights of African Americans that led to the repeated and sometimes violent confrontations and the riots on and burning in Los Angeles, Detroit, New York, Newark, Newark, and other major cities. Okay, यहाँ पे आते हैं the black aesthetic was that was voiced or supported by writers in the movement rejected as aspects of domination by white culture and the high art and modernist forms advocated by Ralph Ellison and other African American writers in the 1950s. Next is very important जो कि है आपका blank verse. Wait a minute, इससे पहले कि हम blank verse complete करें। So अब जो हमारा टॉपिक है वो है blank verse. Blank verse consists of lines of iambic pentameter, very important. अब iambic pentameter क्या होता है? Five stress iambic verse which are unrhymed, hence the term blank. ठीक है? Of all English metrical forms, it is the closest to the natural rhythms of English speech, yet flexible and adaptive to diverse levels of discourse. As a result, it has been more frequently and variously used than any other form of versification. Important. Soon after blank verse was introduced by the Earl of Surrey in the translations of Book 2 and 4 of Virgil's The Aeneid. It became the standard meter for Elizabethan and later poetic drama. A free form of blank verse remained the medium in such 20th century verse plays as those by Maxwell Anderson, T.S. Eliot, etc. etc. John Milton uses blank verse in his epic Paradise Lost 1667. James Thompson, मैं इसे underline कर देता हूँ. James Thompson for his descriptive and philosophical seasons William Wordsworth for his autobiographical prelude, Alfred Lord Tennyson for his narrative of Idols of the King, Robert Browning for The Ring and the Book, and many dramatic monologues, and T.S. Eliot for much of Wasteland. A large number of meditative lyrics, including the Romantic period to the present, have also been written in blank verse, including हमारा पहला है कॉलरिज का Frosted Midnight, सेकंड है वर्ड्सवर्थ का Tinton Abbey, थर्ड है Tennyson's का Tears, Idle Tears, in which the blank verse is divided into five line stanzas, and Wallace Stevens' Sunday Morning. सभी बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट पोएम्स है, आपको डेफिनेटली ये करना है. चलिए ये तो हो गया कि कौन कौन से पोएम कौन से वर्क के अंदर हमें ब्लैंक वर्स देखने को मिलता है. ऊपर इसका डेफिनेशन है कि ब्लैंक वर्स है क्या. डेफिनेटली इंपॉर्टेंट है, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है. चलिए अब आगे करते हैं. Divisions in blank verse poems used to set off a sustained paragraph passage are called verse paragraph. See, for example, the great verse paragraph of 26 lines which initiates Milton's Paradise Lost, beginning with of man's first disobedience and ending with and justify the ways of men of God to men. Also, the opening verse paragraph of 22 lines in Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey, which begins, 5 years have passed, 5 summers, with the length of 5 long winters. And again I hear these waters rolling from their mountain springs with a soft inland murmur. ये रहा आपका ब्लैंक वर्स. आई गेस ये आपका क्लियर है. बहुत ही इजी है और बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है. 26 जो है वो आपका ब्लूम्सबरी ग्रुप, वर्जीनिया वुल्फ इसकी पार्ट थी. बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट ग्रुप है, डेफिनेटली इंपॉर्टेंट है. नेक्स्ट है ब्लूम्सबरी ग्रुप. द ब्लूम्सबरी ग्रुप इज अ नेम अप्लाइड टू एन informal association of writers, artists, intellectuals, many of whom lived in Bloomsbury. ठीक है. Wait. A residential district in central London. The group of friends began to meet around 1905 for conversations about the arts and issues in philosophy. Its members who opposed the narrow post-Victorian restrictions in both the art and the morality included novelists कौन. First we have Virginia Woolf, then we have E.M. Forster, then we have painters like Duncan Grant, we have Vanessa Bell जो कि by Virginia Woolf की बहन है, the influential art critics Clive Bell and Roger Fry. The iconoclastic biographer of Victorian personages, Starchy, and the famed economist John Maynard Keynes. Some men some members were linked not only by common interests and viewpoints, but also by complicated erotic liaisons, both heterosexual and homosexual. The Bloomsbury group had an important influence on innovative literary, artistic, and intellectual developments of the two decades. So, ये important है. Which ended in 1819. A memoir by the son of Clive Bell and Vanessa Stephen is Quentin Bell, Bloomsbury recalled 1997. Bloomsbury, A House of Lions 1979. ओके नेक्स्ट हमारा चेंज है. 26 ये हो गया. 27 ये उतना इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है बट लेट्स डू इट. तो आपका नेक्स्ट वर्ड है वो है बॉम्बास्ट. Bombast denotes a worldly and inflated diction that is patently disproportionate to the matter that it signifies. The magniloquence of even so fine as a poet as Christopher Marlowe is at times inappropriate to its sense. As Dr. Foster, as when Foster declares, now by the kingdom of infernal rule of strings Acheron, and the fiery lake of ever-burning Phlegethon. I swear that I do long to see the monuments and situation of bright splendid Rome. दोबारा पढ़ लेते हैं ऊपर वाला. It denotes a worldly and inflated diction that is patently disproportionate to the matter that it signifies. Okay, कुछ एग्जांपल्स दे रखे हैं. Let us skip that. 28 बुक है, इसके बारे में तो क्या ही बोलना है, आपको ऑलरेडी पता होगा. बट कुछ और डेफिनेशन दे रखे हैं, so we'll read this too. In the inclusive sense, the term designates any written or printed document which is of considerable length, yet is light and durable enough to be easily portable. Okay, यहाँ पे है. Give me a moment. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, let's move forward. हाँ तो इन द एंशियंट ग्रीस एंड रोम द स्टैंडर्ड फॉर्म. रुकिए रुकिए, इससे पहले हम ऊपर वाला पढ़ लेते हैं. इन द इंक्लूसिव सेंस द टर्म designates any written or printed document which is of considerable length yet is light and durable enough to be easily portable. Studies devoted to the identification and authorship, dates of issues, the edition and physical proportion of book are called bibliography. तो एक हो गया bibliography, ये आपको पता चल गया. दोबारा करते हैं. Studies devoted to the identification of the authorship, dates of an issue, editions and in physical proportion and physical properties of book are called bibliography. तो ये हो गया. Next is the ancient Greece, Rome and standard form. The standard form of the book were the double papyrus roll. Papyrus, papyrus, which had been developed in Egypt, was made from papyrus reed होना चाहिए, which grows profusely in the Nile Delta. And the stems of the reed were cut into strips, soaked and impregnated with paste. The texts were manuscripts. Manuscripts क्या होते हैं? That is written by hand and were inscribed in columns as the reader went along. He unwound papyrus from right hand roll and wound it on the left hand roll. कुछ और वर्ड्स दे रखे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल parchment was made from the skins of sheep, goat, calves. दोबारा रुकते हैं. Next is vellum. Vellum is okay. Next है codex. हाँ तो कोडेक्स दोबारा पढ़ लेते हैं. Codex is the plural of codices. The parchment was cut into leaves, as in the modern printed book. The leaves were stitched together on one side and then bound. The great advantages of codex over the roll were that the could be opened at any point. The text could be inscribed on both sides of the leaf. The resulting book was able to contain a much longer text in the manuscript roll. छोड़िए अब आगे. Let's move to the next one. ये आपको पता ही है. ये वाला देख लीजिए एक बार. The variorum edition designates either an edition of the work that lists the textual variant in an author's manuscript and in revisions of the printed text. An example, in the Valorian edition of the poems of W. B. Yeats, eds, Peter Alt and Russell K. Elspach, or else in an edition of a text that includes a select sorry, a selection of annotations and commentaries on the text by previous editor or critic. छोड़िए, ये तो important नहीं है. 30 ये book format, ये भी important नहीं है. We'll leave this. Format signifies page size, shape and physical features of a book. तो इतना ही enough है, छोड़िए इसको और आगे जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म्स हैं जो जो आगे आएंगे, तो थोड़ा पढ़ लेते हैं. द प्रिंटर बिगिंस विद अ लार्ज शीट. If the sheet is folded once so as to form two leaves or of 4 pages, the book is folio.